Good morning, Black women. I've come to talk to you about two bills that we definitely don't need to become a law. And we should do everything in our power to reach out to our representatives, resting or not. Because even though we're resting, we still have to think about our Black women future for our little Black girls. And we cannot allow these racist white Republicans to roll over our rights and take away our ability to affect any change in the society we live in. The first bill is called the SAVE Act. The second bill is called the Life Begins at Contraception Act. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to congress.gov. I'm going to tell you the name of these bills, and that way when you go to congress.gov, you can actually put the title in the search bar, pull it up, read it, and actually get familiar with these websites to find out the different bills they're trying to put into law while we're sleeping or when we're not paying attention, gossiping about celebrities, talking about bullshit, discussing relationships, allowing Black males to convince you that you need to be married and that you need to let them into your homes so that they could come in, violate, abuse you and your children. We need to not be sidetracked by that bullshit and stay very vigilant on the things that are happening in this country with this administration under this Klansman president to make sure we are able to vote change every year going forward. All right, so let's get to it. So the SAVE Act can be found on congress.gov. It is House Resolution 8281 SAVE Act. So the way you type it in when you get to congress.gov is you will type in HR H.R. 8281, right? You put that in the search bar. You have to go to the first menu drop down when you open up the page on congress.gov, and you have to make sure in the first drop down box, legislation is there, because within that box you have the option of current Congresses, all Congresses, legislation, committee materials, congressional record, which is one you should always look into to see how these bastards are voting and what they're doing, members, and nominations. So from time to time, go on this website, drop down these menu options, go into it, read everything, peruse it, understand how it works, get the gist of the information. You will be able to understand what is going on in Congress and who are the players in voting into bills that are beneficial to you and who are also the players that are voting in bills that are detrimental to you. So let's get into it. So we're going to click on legislation, first drop down menu, right? And what you're going to do is you're going to read it. It's HR 2881, the SAVE Act. And what this act talks about is this act is working towards taking away women's right to vote. Okay? And the way they plan to do it in short, even though I'm going to read you a little bit of the summary of the bill, is that they're trying to pass this bill into law where you have to have identification in order to vote that matches your birth certificate. Now, right away, that should be a red flag, because the tradition in this country and in most places is when a woman gets married, she changes her name and adopts her husband's last name. So therefore, instantaneously, you will not have whatever state you live in. I live in New York State ID. If I'd taken my husband's name, but I didn't, I kept my father's name, right? Your ID, if you're married and you have a new surname, will not match your birth certificate. So therefore, you will not be allowed to vote. And believe me, they will begin to try to take away the process to change your name back to your original family name just so that you can vote. Because all of this is a way to keep you from exercising your ability to invoke change, equality, and equity in this country. So after saying that, let's get down to a little bit of the summary of this HR bill, HR 8281. And if you go into this and you actually come across the calendar in congress.gov, this is calendar number 439. This is in the 118th Congress second session, okay? Because this bill is actually from the first time it was introduced onto the floor was July 23rd, 2024. And the other bill that we're going to go into was actually introduced in 2023. Anyway, get back to it. So, this is an act, all right? An act to amend the National Voter Registration Act of 1939. I'm bugging. Let me start again. An act to amend the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 to require proof of United States citizenship to register an individual to vote in elections for federal office and for all other purposes. All right. Be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. This act may be cited as the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act or the SAFE Act. Ensuring only citizens are registered to vote in elections for federal office. Right? Definition of documentary proof of United States citizenship. The National Voter Registration Act of 1993. Right? They go into the different United States constitutional law, which is 20502, is amended. Right? By striking as used and inserting in general, as used and by adding at the end of the following. This is how they amended the original law, right? This is how they want to do it to make this a new law. Documentary proof of United States citizenship as used in this act. The term documentary proof of United States citizenship means, with respect to an applicant or voter registration, any of the following. A form of identification used consistent with the requirements of the Real ID Act of 2005 that indicates the applicant is a citizen of the United States, a valid United States passport, the applicant's official United States military ID card, together with the United States military record of service showing that the applicant's place of birth was in the United States. And you know why they do that? Because there are people that come from other countries that go get their citizenship by joining the military. A valid government issued photo ID card issued by a federal, state, or tribunal government showing that the applicant's place of birth was in the United States. When they say tribunal government, they're talking about the 7 sovereign Native American Indians of America. There are 7 tribes that span the whole length of America. So they're talking about those people, and those people have their own government and their own tribunal court of law, which is what they're talking about. All right. So they go on to say a valid, right, so we did that part. If presented together with one or more of the following, a certified birth certificate issued by a state or unit of local government in the state or tribunal government, which is issued by the state, local government, or tribunal government where the applicant was born, right? So they're telling you all the things that will qualify you to have an actual verifiable certified form of identification. Then they go down like this same, just talking the same stuff about everything you need to have a verified form of identification. I'm reading while I'm talking, sorry, right? And then, okay. I'm trying to get to the part where it goes into, okay, here we go. So when we get down to section, what is this? Let me make sure. All right, let me go up to see where it begins. All right, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is part 5, subsection C2D3, right? You can go down. Okay, in the second part of this section, part 5, there are subsections in part 5. So it says in number 2, section 2 of part 5, 2B, it says in subsection, B, by adding the end of the following. The chief state election official of a state shall take steps as may be necessary to ensure that the residents of the state aware of the requirement to provide documentary proof of the United States citizenship to register to vote in elections for a federal, state, or in-state. All right. Then they go on to say, if the person did not provide documentary proof of United States citizenship when registering to vote, and by adding the end of the following new subsection, right, ensuring proof of the United States citizenship, presenting proof of United States citizenship to election officials, an applicant who submits the mail voter registration application form prescribed by the Election Assistance Commission pursuant to Section 9A2 or a form described in paragraph 1 or 2 of the subsection A shall not be registered to vote in an election for federal office unless the applicant. So basically what they're saying now is when you receive your voter registration card in the mail, that don't mean shit no more. You're not going to be able to be registered, be allowed to vote unless. Now here comes the unless, right? All right, so we went through notification of requirements. So accessibility. Each state shall, in consultation of the Election Assistance Commission, ensure that reasonable accommodations are made to allow an individual with disability who submits the mail voter registration application form prescribed by the Election Assistance Commission, right? The appropriate official, right? They're saying, oh, wow, this is a lot. Basically, they're going to ask the applicant the question, are you a citizen of the United States? And if the applicant answers in the affirmative, require documentary proof of the United States citizenship prior to providing the form under section subparagraph C, and 2 in subsection C1 by inserting who are citizens of the United States after for persons. Then they got a whole nother list in section and subsections of how each state is going to decide how they will designate the proof they need to ensure that you really are a citizen. It says ensuring only citizens are registered to vote. So in general, subject to any relevant guidance adopted by the Election Assistance Commission, each state shall establish a process under which an applicant who cannot provide documentary proof of the United States citizenship under those same paragraphs may, if the applicant signs an attestation under penalty of perjury that the applicant is a citizen of the United States and eligible to vote in elections, right? Submit such other evidence to appropriate state and or local official demonstrating that the applicant is a citizen of the United States, and such official shall make a determination as to whether the applicant has sufficiently established United States citizenship for purposes of registering to vote in elections for federal office in the state. Now, what I was talking about, because this is a lot of shit to read, okay? When you read this stuff all the way down, they talk about how state agencies that supply state identification cards or driver's license where the agency confirms United States citizenship status of the applicants is not enough. That's part of it, but that's not all it takes. And then it goes on to, in general, how each state election official will determine the process of what they will take from you to decide if you're a citizen or not. So clearly they're trying to tell you that even if you come with everything that you have to literally prove that you are a United States citizen, they still could tell you that's not sufficient enough. Which comes back to my original point when I was telling you what we were going to talk about in regards to these bills trying to become laws, is that they keep talking about your original name. So your original name derives from your birth certificate, right? So now if you have a marriage certificate That is not your original name. So therefore, your driver's license, your state ID, whatever type, your military card, whatever, military ID, whatever you have, if it is not exactly like your birth certificate, you should not be allowed to vote. This is what they're saying. When you read all this, and believe me, when you read this, have a pen and a pad beside you so that you could stay in line, stay in outline of all the subsections, parts, and paragraphs of this bill, because it is all over the place. I'm not kidding you, right? So then they talk about prohibiting fees, and this goes back to Black history, where they used to charge Black people to vote. Up until the 1960, I think it was like up to 1963 or 64, they used to charge Black people like $2 to $4 or something like that a person to vote. They did. And Black people were the only people who had to pay a voting fee. And they're talking about that in here as well. All right, so then it goes on, and I'm trying to get the actual parts where they tell you about. They just talk about everything. They have incorporated the duty of the Secretary of Homeland Security to now be involved with election officials of naturalization. They have also included rules of construction regarding provisional ballots. They're including a rule of construction regarding effect on state exemptions from other federal laws. That is where they're trying to take away your rights, because you already have a federal law that says you only need a state ID or driver's license to match your voter's registration information or card to be able to vote. So right there, this Section 7 rule, right, is amending the federal law other than the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, 52 USC 20501 law, okay? So, and they're trying to say that this act and the amendments made by this act shall take effect on the date of the enactment of this act and shall apply with respect to applications for voter registration which are submitted on or after such date. So basically, if this, the SAVE Act, becomes an actual law, which it never should, okay? The very first time that it's voted on and it is ratified in both the Senate and the House of Representatives, right? It's effective immediately right then. This is what they're saying. You heard them say, what are the actual words they said? Submitted on or after such date. That means that if you get caught up, like right now, New York State and Florida have special elections, right? Because they have seats that became open. Now, Florida, all of the people there should be voting for a Democrat to fill those open seats to bring back balance in both the Senate and the House of Representatives, so that we can have a sort of fair amount of representatives in each house, so that we could get shit done, work approved, and some democracy and equality back in this country. Same thing with New York State. New Yorkers, we have a special election coming up, supposed to be in April. I think they pushed it back, but I'm going to look it up today, find out, and come back and do a video about that. We have a special election coming up where we need to get out, and we need to get Democrats in every available seat in New York, because we are a safe haven or safe harbor state. So listen to what I'm going to say to you. If any of these laws, any of these bills become laws, they affect us because they take away our safe harbor state status, meaning everything that recklessly and ignorantly goes on in red states where they have abortion bans. They're trying to ask for women to be put to death if they have an abortion, or they try to abort their baby, or they have complications with a miscarriage or a pregnancy. They should be put in jail or have their life taken. They will try to apply that same dumb shit to Democratic state, blue states. Let's not have that, okay? Let's not. So The very last bill that they want to become